space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim, and with me, of course, is Admiral Elliot.
Hi there.
And this week we're talking about the next Barclay episode, but we've jumped over to Voyager now. We've run out of his Next Gen appearances.
Yeah.
We've got a Voyager one, but it's this is good for us hologram.
Do you want to do the few bits of news that we've got?
Yeah, give us the news.
Before we jump into it, we got a few bits of news this last week.
Go on then.
So
I missed this. I'm obviously...
Well, our mate John Delancey has been tweeting again.
Oh, right.
about Picard. So it's an official source, so we don't mind these spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
But he's let it out the bag that we're going to have Data coming back in Picard.
Has he? I saw...
Yeah,
I did see something.
It's interesting. It's interesting because he's tweeted that he's looking forward to doing his scenes with Data.
Right.
And normally and he specifically said the character name. And why it's interesting is that you've got to think, oh, well, it's ought to be Brent Spiner actually playing Data. Is John Delancey calls everyone by the real name normally.
Right.
It's like,
okay.
I've been working with Patrick again.
Right.
And it was great to have Frakes directing.
So he's not...
Yeah, but it's deliberately said, I'm not filming with Brent, or I'm not filming with Spiner, I'm filming with Data.
Right. I wonder if it's either one or two things. Either CBS are feeding him this stuff and saying, put this out, or we want you to let this slip. Either that, or he's like the Mark Ruffalo of the Star Trek universe, and he's just letting stuff out that he shouldn't be letting out. But interesting.
The Marvel Universe did it with Tom Holland, didn't they? Because Tom Holland had a rep for letting things slip.
Yeah.
So Marvel deliberately give him things that he could let slip. To sort of, and I think exactly. That he's doing it so often now that CBS must be letting him do this.
Yeah, I think they must be doing it. I hope they are, because I don't want him getting in trouble with them. But
no, I don't.
Yeah, you see, I saw a thing that said about Data, and I thought, oh, it'll be one of these, like, giant freaking robot or whatever, these sites that always make things up, so I ignored it, but I didn't know it had come from...
it's actually come from Delancey himself, and it's interesting because of how he talks about everyone, that he specifically called him Data. And also, Mike McMahon did an interview this last week. He hasn't really let anything slip about Lower Decks. Just that they're well on with Season 2 and Season 3. But he has said that the story with Boimler, how he's off on the Titan with Riker and that sort of little arc will be tied up very early on in Season 2.
That doesn't surprise
me. I think we all suspected it'd happen anyway, that he'd end up back on the
I think Boimler will get himself sacked off the Titan really quickly.
Yeah, I do. He also said that he hasn't mentioned anyone, but he said that there are going to be quite a number of legacy characters coming up in Season 2 and Season 3. But not necessarily the legacy characters that you might expect.
Well, I'm hoping for more DS9 characters because it's the right period.
Yeah, I'm thinking DS9 and that sort of thing. It's
I'd like to see that.
Not having your Captain Picards, not having your Qs turn up, but like maybe you get your Beverly Crushes in there, or your Dr. Bashir or
Dr.
Kira.
Bashir would be awesome, and Esri Dax and everything. Yeah, I definitely want to see somebody.
Let's get a bit of Garak.
Oh, Garak, he needs,
because everyone loves a bit of Garak.
Yeah, I reckon, because Andy Robinson loves Garak so much. I reckon.
Well, he's wrote a book himself.
Exactly. So I reckon if they said big budget Garak miniseries, he'd be all over it. Or what about Garak and Bashir Section 31 series? Obsidian Order Section 31 miniseries, and it's just proper espionage with Alexander Siddig and Andy Robinson. I think that'd be phenomenal. But
we did, didn't we? We did the Bashir one. What was it? What did we do a couple of weeks
Dr.
ago?
Bashir, I presume. No, sorry. We looked at what is the name of the episode? I can't believe that. I can't think. Is it Dr. Bashir? No, because that's the
No, Dr. Bashir, I presume, is the one where he's off to be the EMH.
Yeah, it is. Arman Bashir. There you go.
Arman Bashir.
That's the one we did.
Because we got great stuff with them being spies in that one.
Exactly, I'd be well up for it. But anyway,
let's sell it to CBS. Let's make some money for a change.
Go. Give us a ring, CBS, and we'll come up with ideas. We've got. This is our 103rd, 104th episode, and I'm sure we've come up with an idea for a show in just about every single one. So, if you need ideas,
one of them must be good.
We're going to look at. Yeah, you'd think. We're going to look at projections, and we're going to look at the final episode of our prelude to the Dominion War, Shadow Play from DS9. But first up, projections from Voyager then, and this is another one of these weird ones where it's officially season 2 of Voyager. It's officially sort of episode 3 of season 2, but it's totally not. It was one of the 4 that they held over from season 1.
Yeah.
So this is technically a first season episode, but to all intents and purposes, it always appears as a season 2 episode, unless you've got the UK VHS releases from way back when it first came out. So it's a Doctor episode, and yeah, I think it's a pretty good one. Like, we start with him. He appears, he does his please state the nature of the medical emergency. But you can tell it's going to be a weird episode straight away because the lighting, we've got the spooky, sinister lighting, which we usually get when the ship's been taken over by something. So you know straight off the bat that it's not normal this time.
Yeah, red alert's going off, isn't it?
Yeah, and you've got him, the ship's empty, the warp core's online. And I like how you get the thing where he's talking to the computer. Majel Barrett, they get the money's worth out of her in this episode. She's having to do a lot of computer talking. And he's trying to work it all out. So no, the ship, the crew's not here, blah, blah, blah. And I like the Doctor's attitude's just, oh, well, my job's done then, so I'll turn myself off. I think because it's early Doctor, later on, I don't think he'd have done that. He'd have been like, right, well, I'm going to carry on the ship back to the Alpha Quadrant or whatever. But
well, by later on, he'd come up with the emergency command holographic program.
Yeah, exactly. He'd have been in his element if this had have happened later on. But yeah, season 1 Doctor's like, oh well, I ain't got a purpose anymore, so I might as well.
Well, if there's no one to treat no medical emergency, that's me done.
Exactly. But obviously he gets interrupted by B'Elanna, so B'Elanna turns up and she tells us that the Kazon have attacked. So again, we can tell this is season 1 Voyager because we're still taking the Kazon seriously as a threat. This is like the Kazon have invaded, they've taken over the whole ship, they've got, so we're still meant to be a little bit scared of them. And yeah, we've covered the
Kazon the Kazon didn't work.
They didn't. But at this point, we're still pretending they did. So you get a lot of sort of preempting what we're going to get later on, really, because it's B'Elanna says, "Oh, we found a way to send you to the bridge, and we've put these remote projectors," and she reels off this list of, "This is where we've put the remote projectors. They're on the bridge. They're in the mess hall." And as she was reeling them off, I'm like, "Oh, so you've put the remote projectors in all the standing sets then that you have on your studio lot, but you've not put it in any of the sets that you have to build specially." So that's quite handy, really.
That was handy.
Yeah, especially for a bottle episode where you don't want to go beyond the normal sets. And B'Elanna in this bit, she also says something about recrystallizing dilithium, and I thought we couldn't do that. Because there's...
Voyager has a different warp core, and Voyager's warp core can recrystallize dilithium.
Well, yeah, Voyager's warp core's like a lava lamp. Whereas TNG's...
Yeah, I was reading something, I was researching something the other day, and I was reading about the Voyager warp core, and it's completely different to what they had in Next Gen.
Okay, so we can...
And the Voyager warp core, by the technical specifications, can recrystallize dilithium. Right.
But isn't that the whole thing in Star Trek 4? Is like we can't...
Yes, but we're 100 years in the future from there. Voyager's warp core obviously has the equivalent of a USS nuclear aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
In it, so it can recrystallize dilithium.
Yeah, when Kirk filed his report for Star Trek 4, they must have thought that's a good idea. We'll do that. So Doctor, he jumps around a bit. He goes to the bridge and meets Janeway, but then he ends up at the mess hall, and you've got this weird thing with Neelix where Neelix is like taunting this Kazon. He's like, "What's it like to stare death in the face, Kazon?" and all of this business, which is very unsort of Neelix-like. But I've got a bit of...
To be fair, I think it's sort of very early Neelix, and I'm talking like the first episode Neelix, when they get when he goes down to save Kesson, he is sort of like, well, we need to be ready to attack the Kazon.
He's a bit more capable before they made him sort of the buffoon.
Yeah,
maybe. See, my theory was, because we sort of find out in this episode that the Doctor seems to have a thing about Kes. And I'm wondering, because, obviously, spoilers, it turns out it's all sort of in the Doctor's mind. So I was wondering maybe if he's got this thing about Kes, and Neelix is... Well, again, we've talked about exactly what their relationship is, and it's weird, but maybe he sees Neelix as a threat because Neelix is with Kes, and so in his subconscious, you've got this Neelix who's sort of intimidating and frightening in a way. I don't know, but that was the only way in my head I could justify it's being dead out.
Like, from the problem I think we've got with watching some of these earlier episodes is that we've also watched all of the others, so we know what Neelix is like.
Yeah, definitely.
And it doesn't seem in character. And to be fair, it's probably not in character here. So you could be right there. That is, the Doctor thinks of him as a rival, or...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's how I justify it in my head anyway. And when the Doctor's approaching, so you get this quite a cool camera shot following him through the mess hall and everything, but it's always really tickled me the way he sort of crawls through that beam. There's a gap in the beam round the edge, and he sort of does this army commando crawl through it. And it just... Robert Picardo's a great actor and everything, but he just doesn't look like a commando crawl kind of guy. It just looks a bit weird, a bit out of place, but anyway. And it all ends up then with the Doctor bleeding, and this is where we get this thing of, is he real? What's going on? And there's no record of him on file.
And he's asking the computer, is my program being altered?
Yeah.
This
is weird, and we'll get onto this stuff later on with. Like, you get all this stuff, like when he's going to destroy the Hollow Matrix, and it's kind of going back to, like, shipping a bottle from TNG. It's like, if he destroys the Hollow Matrix, but he's in a program, it's not going to do anything. And it seems weird that the Doctor seems to think that it will, and Barclay kind of calls it out a little bit and says, no, it's a program within a program, which... Obviously, Barclay had know a lot about. But...
It's I was reading about this, and I can't remember the name of the psychologist. It's an 18th century psychologist, and he came up with a thing of this. It's sort of it's the whole thing is examining reality. Are you real or are you make believe?
Yeah, it's like this thing of they reckon that it's pretty much a coin toss as to whether this is real or whether this is a simulation, and there's no way to prove it either way. I know what you mean. Yeah. So this is where we get the name Louis Zimmerman for the first time, and
actually, it's not.
Oh, is it not? Go on then.
No, I have actually read quite a lot on this episode because I was looking for something else. And in early UK adverts for Voyager before it came out, the Doctor was listed as Dr. Zimmerman.
He was, yes, I remember that. I remember getting the Star Trek magazine, and it said Doc Zimmerman. It's in one magazine and one actual TV advert that appeared on UK TV that it's Dr. Zimmerman. So, right, I'll rephrase it.
This is the third.
This is the first time within the show, then, that we it. And you're right.
Well, I thought that was one of my interesting facts of the week.
No, it is. Yeah, no, I do remember the magazine now because it was so different to like how it is now. Like we've talked about Prodigy and everything, and we still know next to nothing about it. Whereas back then, it was like, we've got this new series coming called Voyager. Here's a magazine that tells you everything about all the characters. And it were like, so there wasn't that much of a surprise when we actually got it.
To be fair, you're saying that, but if you think about it, there was a bit of a backstory about each character. They're going to be heroic, and Tom Paris is the dashing pilot who had with a criminal back history. But you didn't get a lot. But that's all you got.
True.
You didn't get the magazine came out, and then a day later, YouTube exploded with 1,000 pages that have gone on of this speculation about what that means. You got one thing.
Right. That was it, and you had to think yourself about it rather than
and maybe sit down and talk with your mates about it.
Very true. Yeah. Well, thank goodness we don't have to do that anymore.
Well, they've done away with that, haven't
they? So then you get the quite cool bit where Janeway says shut down all the holograms, and everybody disappears except the Doctor. Which kind of ties into the next episode we're looking at as well. And then this is where we get Barclay. And so it's really good to see Barclay again.
I have a massive, massive problem with this.
Go on.
Barclay shouldn't be there.
Okay.
Because, it says that Barclay is Dr. Zimmerman's assistant who worked on the EMH. Now, we know for a fact that Barclay was on board the Enterprise from 2366 till at least 2370.
Is that when First Contact took place?
No, 2370 is when Oh, the last Barclay episode where we looked at Genesis.
Genesis, right, but he's still on it in First Contact.
Exactly, which is 2373.
Right, okay.
Voyager launched in 2371.
So
when was it? And you've got, and I've looked this up this afternoon because it's been really bugging me. When was he there? And there's actually 2 official canon things, and one of the canon sources says at 2370 he transferred off the Enterprise to Jupiter Station, worked on this project, then he transferred in 2373 back to the Starship Enterprise, and then the other canon source says that up until 2373 Reg Barclay was still under the command of Captain Picard on the Enterprise E, just transferred after the cross to the other.
Right, there we go then.
And both are canon.
But do we get confirmation in this episode, in the real world part of this episode, that Barclay's actually Zimmerman's assistant? Or is it only the delusion part?
Well, it's only in this delusion part, but why would he pull up Reg Barclay as part of the programming?
And how would he get in so exact?
And, there's canon sources that Dr. Zimmerman, he transferred to Jupiter Station in 2361, and from the mid-2360s, he was working on the EMH.
Right. So, yeah, Barclay's...
So, for Barclay to be a major part of it is his assistant and in the programme, because he must be embedded in the programme somewhere for the Doctor to imagine him.
Yeah, he absolutely must be.
And it's sort of like, why would you be?
You're right, it don't stack up, does it? It's...
Yeah, originally the part was written, when the script was first written, it was going to be Georgie LaForge.
That makes more sense.
But even then, where would he have been at Jupiter Station?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, they decided that Reg Barclay would be an interesting character to have in.
Which he
is.
But
the timing doesn't... And he is an interesting character, and I love him being in it. But it doesn't make sense time-wise of...
You're right, it doesn't. I've not thought
how he served on the Enterprise all this time. But at the same time was Dr. Zimmerman's assistant on Jupiter Station.
Maybe he's just pulling double duty, who knows? But I'm just trying to think if there's any way we could... maybe after the Enterprise D gets destroyed, he worked as Zimmerman's assistant until the Enterprise E got commissioned.
Enterprise D got destroyed in 2372.
Right, so he could have still...
So that doesn't work out. No, because Voyager launched in 2371.
Yep, okay, fair enough.
It doesn't...
You're right, it doesn't. Okay, so... they say that they can end the programme, but they can reset the programme. And so you get a quite cool bit where we revisit the first episode again. So you get the Doctor from when he first gets turned on. And like where it says, Doctor, are you going to help this man? And he's like, no, I'm not. And goes off. So. That's really good. And that's when he starts to think that he's real. And I like that Janeway thinks that Barclay and the Doctor must have brought them to the Delta Quadrant. And she's starting to think they're involved with it all, which from her point of view makes sense, but it makes for quite a funny scene and everything. And this is where you get to this thing about he's going to destroy the holomatrix, which doesn't really make sense because Barclay's saying you destroy the holomatrix and that'll make all the holograms disappear. But if
and then
he's
you'll be out
in
of
the program, he's destroying the holomatrix in the program.
Yeah, and it says that to do it, you've got to destroy the warp core. Like I think how this is written or how it plays out. I think you're meant to think that there's jeopardy to Voyager itself by him destroying the warp core. I wonder if he does that, and it crashes, and it does crash the program. If he's in danger of deleting himself by shutting the program down.
Maybe, but then they don't make that abundantly clear because
they don't.
But in order to make that clear, they would have to show the hand a little bit too soon and say definitively the Doctor is real. So you would have had to have had a scene set outside of it, maybe with the crew observing it, saying, "Oh, if he does that, he'll delete himself.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know, and we can't tell him." But then that...
but you don't get any of that.
No, but they obviously want to keep us completely in the Doctor's point of view for this episode. So you don't get that external view on it.
Yeah, it's really interesting with it, but only seeing it from the Doctor's view, that you don't have the crew sort of looking in on it.
You're right, you don't get happening.
But it's sort of like, well, Barclay's telling him that to break the hologram, he has to destroy the warp core. But what's the actual jeopardy?
Yeah, there isn't any. I suppose the only way it'd be jeopardy is if we thought that he's actually on the real Voyager and he's going to destroy the real ship by doing that. But I think by this point in the episode, we're way past that. We don't think that's what's going on.
No, we don't think that at all.
There's quite a cool sort of fake out at the end where he wakes up and the clue's there because he wakes up on a bio bed and it's like, well, he wouldn't. That doesn't make any sense.
No.
But I think the way the episode does it, you could fall for it if you didn't know what was coming.
But, to be fair, watching it again and watching it the first time round again, because it is a long time since I've watched this, it's sort of like, oh, they've got him out, and it plays like it's all over.
Yeah, it does, and
it's
very well done. And I think it makes it even cleverer, the fact that the clue is there by showing him waking up.
Yeah.
You don't question it.
You don't register it.
It's going to be. So, very well done. And I think Jennifer Lean acts it really, really well, where she seems like normal Kez, and then she turns and she's like, what, you don't love me? And you realise...
Yeah, she's like you think... Like, he said, that you're beautiful, Kez, and all that. Yeah. And she's almost playing it like she's having a bit of a wind-up and dig at him, like, oh, so you think I'm beautiful and all that.
And then it turns, and all of a sudden it's, oh, he's still inside it, and Barclay turns up again and everything. So, really well done, the end of it. And then, obviously, he does come back to the real world again. And he's talking about why it's happened and everything. And there's a funny bit where Kez says, well, don't tell Neelix about it, about me being your wife in the alternate version. And there's a good bit where he checks that he can't leave sickbay, and it's almost...
Well, she does have a bit of a wind-up with him, doesn't she, and all that, and like, well, are we real, and all that, and makes him, and has him sort of second guessing why he does it, so she does a bit of a wind up on him, which is what we'd had the first time, the fake wake up.
And it's like you said about this idea of, is it real, is it a simulation, and the Doctor kind of tries it out for himself, and it's interesting that he's comforted by the fact that he is a hologram in this. And
what is really interesting about this is that this is the first time I think they absolutely nail it. What should happen when a hologram leaves the holodeck?
Yes, yeah.
And his hand, and you see his hand moving through the edge of the holographic simulation and vanishing.
Yeah,
as it moves, and then it comes back again, and that's how it should work. You shouldn't have snowballs being thrown off.
No, you shouldn't.
And you shouldn't have holographic characters walking off the holodeck and slowly vanishing from the feet upwards. And
they don't dissolve when they come out of the holodeck. But so it's only took 7 seasons of TNG, 3 seasons of DS9, and 1 season of Voyager. We've got there. We've done it.
No, but I do, and it is something that stands out because it's like, and it's probably overlooked by a lot of people. Just what a lovely effect that is.
Oh, it's great.
And that they got it right. And
exactly.
They treat it like a holodeck.
Yeah, it is done really well. So yeah, that's projections. Then I like that episode. I think that's a good.
I like this episode. Apart from it, I don't think I like Barclay.
Yeah,
but I don't think Barclay should have been the character that was used.
No, you're right. It doesn't. I've not thought about it enough, but it doesn't make sense.
They could have maybe brought. What was the name? Who was in Q Who? The first time they met the Borg. That sort of fancied Georgie and threw hot chocolate over the captain because you're allowed cups of hot chocolate in engineering.
Ensign Gomez.
Yeah, she'd have been a good one to bring in.
Yeah.
She got kicked off because we don't see her again. Oh no. Well, she got moved. She got transferred to Jupiter Station, and she did.
Yeah, someone where there's been a bit of time for it to actually happen. Yeah,
to make sense.
But yeah. We'll give it a pass, though, because it gives us more Barclay to talk about.
I enjoy Barclay, don't get me wrong, and I like seeing Barclay, and I think Barclay is good in the episode. It just shouldn't have been him because of the time.
You're right. So moving on to Shadowplay, then, from DS9. So this is the last of the build-up to the Dominion War. But I know the war's not declared until later on, but we're actually going to get the actual Dominion soon. But this is one of actually setting
the last time where they just hinted at.
Yeah, the last time we just get a random mention of them. And it's a funny old episode, this one. Like, I only ever remember the A plot, but this is one of those rare episodes where we get an A plot, a B plot, and a C plot, and
there's quite a bit going on, isn't there?
Mixed returns, I think, from the different storylines, but we'll get into them. So the A plot then is Dax and Odo are in the Gamma Quadrant, and they find a planet. But before that, we get this bit where Dax is kind of winding Odo up, talking to him about possible romance and everything, and there's someone on the station who fancies Odo, apparently. And Odo's playing it all like, oh, I'm not interested in all that stuff, and blah, 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 blah. But
and women don't find me interesting and all that, and they're not interested in me. And,
well, what about
Dax makes a good
Troy? Loxana Troy was all over him.
Yeah.
And that was only in season 1. And also, I think he's protesting a bit too much, because even at this point, as the viewers, we know that he's into Kira.
Yeah.
So I think he's fibbing a little bit, is Odo there.
Yeah, he's definitely fibbing. He maybe doesn't fancy this woman back himself, but
I don't think he's interested in her.
I don't think we see any on-screen evidence of this happening, though, do we?
No, I don't think we do. I think it's just a bit of a throwaway thing. DS9 with that, like they often mention, is it Captain Baudet, who's apparently a lover of Dax's, and he's got a see-through skull, but we never actually get to see him, but he's mentioned a lot.
Yeah.
So they beam down.
Well, Captain Baudet just left yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. And you were out with Captain Baudet a few days ago, but he's so anyway, they beam down to the planet. They get rumbled by a guy with a gun, and then back on the station, we get the B plot introduced, which is now that Odo's away, Quark thinks he can get away with a few more things, but Kira's keeping an eye on him. And I like how everyone else gives Quark a bit more leeway, but Kira never does. Kira, like, he said, you don't like me, and she's like, no, I despise you. You were a collaborator with the Cardassians. You're always...
let's be... I think Kira is really unfair on Quark.
I think...
We know that Quark isn't a collaborator, because Quark isn't Bajoran. Quark is a businessman who's got permission to have a bar on this space station. Yeah. A collaborator is a Bajoran who helps the Cardassians.
Yeah, or someone who actively helps the Cardassians, whereas I think...
Yeah.
Quark.
But
just
Quark,
business.
we've already had proof, already in DS9, that Quark quite regular helped Bajorans out, giving them jobs and giving charity and smuggling things for them. And so I think Kira is really unfair on Quark.
I think in Kira's eyes, unless you were actively part of the Bajoran militia, you were a collaborator. And she mellows a bit in that opinion over the course of the series, but I think that's where she's at in these early days. And I think she is very militant about it. And she just doesn't like a variety of
but let's be fair, like, Quark's been a bit slimy towards her at times, but he's never done anything that warrants her attitude towards him. I think she's very unfair.
Maybe, yeah. I think the worst thing he's done to this point is in that episode where the guy tries to steal Dax's symbiont, and it's Quark that's let him on the station. So I think that's probably the worst thing that he's done. But so then we get introduced to the C plot of the episode, which, to be honest, barely it only gets a few minutes of screen time across the whole episode, but we're here to be complete, so we will mention it. Sisko wants Jake to work with O'Brien because he expects him to go to Starfleet Academy. And that's his little C story for the episode. And not much happens with it, to be honest, does it? We get a little bit of back and forth.
We get a little bit of back and forth, but it sets up that once and for all that Jake doesn't want to join Starfleet.
Yeah. And I think that is an important plot point because it opens up new avenues of the Star Trek universe. Like, up until this point, you could pretty much assume that every human wants to be in Starfleet because we very rarely see anybody who is.
Well, up until DS9, we've only been based on Federation starships.
So,
like, even with Next Gen with the families, you had like Wesley, I want to be in Starfleet, and all that, and there were the families expected the next kid to.
Yeah, exactly, and this is it. This is showing Jake isn't Wesley Crusher. Yeah, he's going to do something different. So it's fine for what it does and everything, but it seems a bit cramped.
What I do like about it is that he also appreciates that he doesn't take out on Chief O'Brien.
Yeah.
At all. He still tries to do what he's meant to be doing.
Yeah.
But he has it out with his dad, and he goes, look, being in Starfleet is too much like being you. I want to be my own man.
Yeah.
I don't want to join Starfleet, which is fine.
Yeah.
And Sisko is fine with it. But Jake is still happy that he realises that even though he doesn't want to be in Starfleet, having some work experience is still useful and gets him used to actually being in the real world. And
he doesn't say, I'm not going to be in Starfleet, so I'm not going to study or anything. He's like, no, I'm doing the job, and I still need to learn on it.
Yeah, I'm still studying. I still realise my education's important. Mm-hmm. I realise doing this is important, but as my actual end job, I don't know what I actually want to be yet, but I don't want to be a Starfleet officer.
Yeah. No, it is well handled and it's good. It may be a little bit overcrowded, this episode. I feel like this one is they didn't put enough meat on the bones of the A story, so we end up with a B story and a C story going on as well.
Yeah.
Whereas I think we could have done more. Like, it starts off with an interesting hook to it, which is these 22 people have gone missing. And you get this guy who's called the Protector, who's actually a bit useless because he's like, oh, you two were my best suspects, and now you're saying you're it, so what am I? It's really nifty the way Odo goes, look, I'll prove we could get away, and he beams himself up and back down again. I really like that bit. They should do stuff like that more often, just to freak people out, to go, this is what we're capable of. And Odo, obviously, being an investigator, gets involved with it. And this is where I think they could have done more with this story. You could have had more about Odo looking into things and questioning people, and someone else disappearing and it getting a bit more sinister and everything. But we actually go through the motions of it pretty quickly. Like, he meets the little girl, Taya, and he questions her and everything.
Yeah, to be fair, you can see why you could solve this so quickly.
Yeah.
When no one's ever left the village.
Yeah, it's very like the Truman Show, isn't it? It's like, nobody's ever, in the Truman Show where they put him off ever leaving, and he says, I want to be an explorer, and they go, too late, everywhere's been explored, and stuff like that. And it's a very similar thing, like, no one ever leaves the village. Oh, like the other one, that M. Night Shyamalan village. Obviously, that's a different twist in that. But, anyway. So, back to the B story then. Kira, I like that Kira asked Bashir to spy on Quark. And he's like, Garak's been teaching me. You see, this is our spin-off series. It's all ready. And then Bareil turns up. Now, I think this is the first time on the podcast we've talked about Bareil. I just find him boring.
I think he is boring.
Really?
He talks boring.
He does.
He's a priest, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think he plays being a priest really well, because I'm not religious, and I find what you see a priest quite boring.
Yeah, it's kind
apart from Father Ted.
Yeah, Father Ted's different, and what priests get up to in their private lives we won't discuss on this podcast. But I agree with you. He's got this sort of air of a religious person who that's all that they're interested in, and and they try and move away from that in this episode by going, it's really into spring ball and all this stuff, but it just doesn't.
I don't know if the actor in other things, but it just comes across as with the spring ball, he's not being interested in it.
Yeah, it does.
He does it, but it doesn't sound enthusiastic about things.
No.
And okay, he's a good-looking guy, so you can see why Kira might fancy him.
Yeah.
But surely, as soon as she spoke to him, she must think, really?
It's not his personality, is it? And we find out right from the start, she doesn't agree with him on his interpretation of the prophecies.
Yeah.
So, she don't even have a lot in common with him in religious grounds, and like you say, there's just, you don't feel a spark, and I don't think it's not Nana Visitor's acting, definitely. So that means we need to put it on, as he called, Philip Anglin or something. But it's just a dull character, and I don't buy the chemistry. But anyway, back on the planet then. Odo is talking to this Taya again, and she uses the word changeling again, so we bring that right back from Vortex episode. And it's presented a similar way here, isn't it? It's like we've got stories about changelings.
And legends. And she tells a story, doesn't she?
Yes. We only sort of hear the end of it. And it's kind of a changeling being a bit stupid. He turns into something and he gets eaten.
Yeah.
And she tries to get Odo to, why don't you turn into a loaf of bread? And, you can see that it's sort of like an Aesop's fable, isn't it?
Yeah. I got the impression that she told a fable.
Yeah, it's they tricked it by doing, what I'm trying to think of what the one is. Isn't there... I'm sure there's something like stories where it's a mythical creature, and somebody keeps it talking all night, and the sun comes up and it turns it into stone or something.
Yeah. Well, you have that with the trolls, and that, don't you?
Yeah, and stuff like Narcissus was so obsessed with his own image that he saw an image of himself in the river and he tried to kiss it and he fell in. It's that sort of your own hubris brings about your downfall kind of thing. And I can imagine that changelings have permeated into culture to that extent, and people do tell these stories about them. So yeah, it's good. It's really good sort of world building with it. And you get a little bit of backstory with Odo as well. Like he's saying, people used to always ask me to do, change into things for their own entertainment. And that goes back to this Cardassian neck trick that we've mentioned before and we always hear about and everything. And Odo seems to really bond with the girl, and he promises he's going to try and find a mum and everything. Then he questions the granddad, and you find out the granddad's dying, and he's obviously going to become an important character. And he acts a bit shifty when Odo's like, "How come no one ever wants to leave the village?" And he's a bit, "Oh." So
why would you want to leave the village?
Yeah, because it's only about 3 foot wide. That's why there's no point going off elsewhere. So yeah, you're right. It's not the biggest mystery to kind of stumble upon, is it?
Yeah.
And obviously, and given the Jews, they don't string it out unnecessarily. We get
to it very quickly, and I think that's why we've got a B and a C plot in this episode, because I think the A plot story is an interesting story, but to tell it how they are, it'd be a boring story if you made it the full 45 minutes.
Maybe so.
It doesn't need stringing along.
No, it doesn't. I still think they could have done more with the mystery at the start of it and sort of manipulated that element up a little bit more. But going back to the Doctor sticking his hand out of the thing, we get a similar sort of thing here, don't we? Where the tricorder or the whatever it is disappears out of Dax's hand and everything. And the
little girl tries putting it, Odo is it Odo or Dax realises what's happening?
Yeah.
And they've got the little girl with them and the shouts stop.
Yeah.
And she's just about to cross over and she puts her arm through.
So that's it. Obviously, people have been going beyond the border of the village and effectively deleting themselves. Seems to be what's been going on with it.
Well, I don't think they have. I think the programme not to leave the village. And I don't think that's why they've disappeared. I think it's we find out that the programme's degrading, don't we?
Right. So I
think they're just disappear. I think they're just disappearing.
Right. I think you might be right. Actually, yeah. I had it in my head that they were going outside the village, but yeah, I think you're right.
I think that the programme not to want to leave the village, but I think the programme degrading is why.
Right, so they're just disappearing.
It's sort of the programme's degrading. It's losing memory space, and as it loses memory space, someone disappears.
Right, that makes sense. Back on the station, then Kira's beaten Burial at Spring Ball, probably because he want that into it to begin with, and you get this awful kissy scene where. I know we're a family show, so we're not going to have full-on tongues and, all this stuff, but it's this ridiculous sort of meh, meh. And they're doing this talking in between it, oh, I'm so glad that the Vedic so-and-so asked me to come to the station, and they're trying to do this thing where they're trying to move the story forward while they've got this kissing going on, and it all just seems a bit silly, but again, I think it's because he just don't look interesting at all.
No, he don't. And I'm not being funny. You'd be if you got your script and you've got you're kissing Nana visitor, and then you've got to stop to say this and stop to say this. You'd be going, well, can we cross this part out where I stop? And can we cross this part out where I stop?
Yeah, there's definitely, as I say, worse days at the office, isn't there? But
without a doubt.
But he doesn't look that interested. But anyway, so she realises it's all basically Quark's arranged for him to come there to try and distract him.
The Vedic based on the station has a Dabo addiction.
Yes, effectively. But Kira manages to thwart him and everything. She catches the cousin, and it appears Kira and Barial are going to be a thing going forward, which they are.
They are.
Luckily, I'm not sure if we come across Barial again in the Dominion War.
We do have more Barial come up.
Oh,
I don't know which episodes he's in.
Right.
So we might avoid him, but
I know he's in it a lot more, but I'm not sure he's going to be in it before we check out. But
before we go into high gear with nearly every episode is Dominion War, and you can't avoid a character.
That's true, yeah. But Barial's long gone. Barial's long gone by that point, thankfully. So back on the planet, then they're going to reboot the system. And they turn it off, and it's the Grandad's left over, so we find out that he's the only real one, and he's created
he's an interesting fact. The big air contraption that they have that's creating this holographic project in the village. I've seen that prop. It was the Star Trek exhibition. The Star Trek exhibition in Glasgow back in the early 90s.
Yeah. Yes, I went to that, yeah.
Yeah. We didn't go together, but I think you went a week after me or something. But
I think it is. It was.
Yeah, that prop was at that exhibition. They were making a big deal of it. Yeah.
Well, it's a big prop, is that? You know,
I know it was.
It's huge. Yeah. So the Grandad made it all, and he was running from the Dominion, so that's where we get his Dominion link in this episode.
Yeah, and then, the Dominion invaded my planet, and I didn't like them, so I left.
Yeah, so I did a runner and set up my own holographic planet on this. And then he's like, just leave it switched off now. And that's when Odo and Dax argue against it. They're like, no, you've made these people and the real people, and you didn't make your granddaughter. You didn't program.
And they have a fair point. They go, you created this program 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But Tia's only 10.
Yeah.
She's a product of the program. You did not program her. She's an amalgamation of different things.
Exactly. And I wonder if the Voyager writers took a bit of a cue from this when they were deciding to create the Doctor, because a lot of the things the Doctor deals with are dealt with very quickly in this episode, and obviously the Doctor explores it in a lot more depth, but similar sort of ideas of, are they real and everything, and ultimately they decide that they are, and they decide to switch it back on. Everybody's restored, and we get a nice happy ending. And Odo turns into a spinning top to
he changes into something to make her happy.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a nice wrap up and everything, and we get that little mention of the Dominion. So if you're keeping track at home, that's 3 mentions of the Dominion we've had across the course of the system. The season, rather. And we know that not every time. The first time in Rules of Acquisition, we knew they were an important trading thing. But then the 2 other times it's been people have had to run away from their planets because of what the Dominion have done.
Because the Dominion turned up.
So we're definitely building to something here. And next week, we finally get to meet the part of the Dominion anyway.
And have we had 2 other species? I think you'd say of changelings so far, because we had...
Yeah.
In Vortex, we had that key thing, and then...
The little amulet-y thing, and the dead
we
thing
had that
in
other...
the alternate.
Yeah, whatever that was.
I think that was dead
we've had a few mentions of people... There's a lot of fables and stories of changelings, obviously, in the Gamma Quadrant, but it's all sort of heard about and
we've
history and a fable. It's no one's seen a changeling, or they don't know they've seen a changeling.
Yeah, they don't think they currently exist, but we're going to get to all of that in a couple of weeks' time. So next week, we're going to carry on with Barclay, which means jumping to Season 6 of Voyager and looking at Pathfinder. Which is
that long till he's in it again?
Yeah, it's a big jump, but then he's in it loads after then.
Yeah.
So he's actually in Voyager more than he's in TNG.
I know he is. He's in quite a lot of Voyager.
Yeah. But yeah, I was surprised. I'd have said maybe Season 4 or something if I had to guess. Yeah. But no, it's Season 6. And then we're going to look at the Jem'Hadar, the Season 2 finale from DS9. So that's going to be a good one to talk about next time. In the meantime, if you do want to get in touch with us, we're on Twitter at RetrekPod. You can email us retrekpod@gmail.com. Or you can come and join the Facebook group and let us know what you think about it all on there. And thank you for trekking with us this time, and we will see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Fascinating.
Oh, we're still on.